Hello and good evening, CSI 135, Section 400, Fall 2013 Anne Arundel Community College students. All right, I'm going to do a quick recap of Week 3, and in the same video, I'm actually going to do the lab solution set. So first of all, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the lab solution set. So if you type in the mail command, you'll see that you received an email for lab number 2. And in lab number 2, it asks you to complete a couple of tasks. First, it wants you to use the Grep Utility to capture all of your output during the lab. It also asks you to name the file with a specific name, which is CSI135-B, and then your login ID number, the date that the lab was distributed, and then script. And the file must be located in your home directory. It says refer to the man page if you're unclear. All right, so this week's lab was very short. Simply 5 tasks. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up another window. Whoops. I'm going to open up another window as a student here. Disconnect there. Let's connect in as a student. Okay. So here I am as user CSI135-B25. And I'll go ahead and we're going to move back and forth between the windows. So the first thing it asks you to do is capture everything using the Grep Utility. If you weren't sure what to do, you could type in man script, and you can see that the script command has a number of options that you can use. The -A option is the option that we are definitely interested in. So it says append the output to file, and that is an argument that we would tell it, and that's where we're going to give it the file name. If you don't use the -A, if you simply type in script, it'll create a file called TypeScript. So again, we need to use the -A because as you see here, it's asking that the file name be CSI135B, then the login ID underscore the date underscore script. So let's go ahead, we'll come over here. Remember to quit from the man pages, you type Q. So I'm going to type in script space -A, and then let me paste in the previous output. I'll backspace up here and we'll make sure we get B25. So as soon as I hit enter, it says script started, file is CSI135B25 with that information that we need. So let's take a look at the first request here, the first question. It says in the following directory there's a file named animal. What animal is depicted in the file? Here's the directory name. So the directory name is exceedingly long and very difficult, and the reason for this is to get you to use the tab automatic command line completion. So if I were to type in ls/tmp/c and then tab, you can see it auto fills in. So if I hit enter, you can see that within this directory we have other directories that are listed out. So I would hit the up arrow to recall my previous command, type in K, and again, as you can see, the K character is unique as the first character of the 3 directories. So then if I hit the tab key, it'll autocomplete. So there's that file animal. So again, you don't even have to leave your home directory to complete these exercises. So as you can see, if I type pwd, it shows me where I'm at. You can also see from the tilde represents the home directory. So what I could do is I could type in cat space, I could copy and paste. I'll do a copy and paste, and then animal. All right, so the name of the animal we're looking for is Stegosaurus. So that would be the answer to number 1, Stegosaurus. So it says number 2, in the following directory there is a file named animal. What animal is depicted in the file? And so then again, you're given the directory name. It's an exceedingly long directory name, but it begins with TP, and as we saw here earlier, that's unique. So all I would need to do would be to type in cat space /tmp/C. It auto-completes. I'll put the T in. It'll auto-complete. And then animal. And let's see what we've got in here. And that is clearly a lion. So again, the purpose of the lab is to get you to recognize the auto-completion feature. And again, as you can see, we haven't really gone over the CD command yet or the file system structure. That'll be this Wednesday. But all of this can be done from your home directory. All right, that was number 2, and it's a lion. So number 3, in the following directory, there's a file named animal.bz2. So the bzip utility has been used to compress this file. What animal is depicted in the file? Here's the directory where the file is located. And again, an exceedingly long directory name here, right? But we can still use the exact same approach that we've been using. So I would type in bzcat, and if you remember, the bzcat utility can be used to actually uncompress in the background and concatenate out the contents of a file that has been bzipped. So I'll do bzcat/temp/C, and let's see, the directory began with, it was that third directory, was cmd, so I'll do cm tab complete and then animal.bz2. Okay, as you can see, this is clearly a bat. So your answers would be stegosaurus, lion, and bat. So let's move back over here and let's see what our fourth task is. It says, finally, append the output of the command history to the script file you created for this lab. So there's a couple ways you could do this. The first way that you could do it is to simply type in history, because since we're still running the script command, that output is going to be captured. What we could do is, if I were to do Control D, that would kill the script file. And again, now it's no longer running. So if I type ls, you can see that I have the script file right here. So if I were to cat that file out, so let's cat out CSI135-400, etc., you can see that the script file was ended and the history output shows up in that file. The other way to accomplish that same task would simply be to run the history command and then redirect the standard output of the command, which is simply that standard output is a list of commands that you've run that are logged in your history file, and append it to the end of that script file. And this would achieve the same thing. So now if I were to cat out CSI, you can see that here at the very end, it captures a very large set of commands. So the history file has been set up to keep a lot of the commands. And so here you are, right? So that's two ways that you could have done it. All right, let me go back down here. Okay, so that was step number 4. And again, haven't had to leave my home directory. Number 5, using the mail utility, mail your script file, which should have the name, CSI, etc., to tpb@vader.aacc.edu, and be sure to CC yourself. So there's a couple of ways we could do this. Let me clear the screen. I'll put in mail space -s, and since I'm going to have spaces in my subject, here is my lab number 2 assignment, and I'm going to send it to TPB. Now again, you don't need, when you're on the class system, you don't need the @vader.aacc.edu, right? But I'll put it up there just in case. So from here, we would type in ~r and then the name of our file. Now, I'm going to hit the tab key. Let's see if command completion works. It does not, right? In fact, when I'm hitting the delete key, I'm getting the Control H. So to save this, I'm going to do Control U, hold down the Control key, and hit U. So we're going to do ~r, and I'm going to grab the name of that file because it was a long name there. And we're going to do copy and paste. When I hit enter, you can clearly see that it has grabbed the right file, and it tells me the number of bytes and the number of lines in the file, right? Or the number of lines and then the number of bytes, respectively. Okay, so there's two ways I can send this. I can do Control D or a period on a line by itself. It's going to ask for my BCC, so I'm going to BCC myself, CSI135-B25. I'm going to hit enter, and that's it. So if I type in mail, you should see that I've received a copy. We'll do message number 2, and I'll hit enter, and there it is. And again, as you can see, the script file, very nice and very clean. It shows all the commands that were run. It shows all of the animals that you need to define. And last but not least, and you're going to see it twice. Let me just hold down the space bar. It's going to show you the history command. And so that's it. That is the solution set for lab number 1. All right, now let me go ahead and cover some of the utilities that we talked about, at the end, or as part of the lecture for week number 3. All right, one of the first utilities that we talked about was the ls utility, right? And ls by itself is simply going to list out the files in our home directory, but it's not going to list out the hidden files. And remember, we talked about a hidden file as a file that begins with a period. If you use the -a option, then ls will show me hidden files that start with a period, right? And the period by itself represents the current working directory. The 2 periods represent the parent directory, or the directory immediately above where we're currently at. And if I type in pwd, those 2 dots would represent CSI135, because that's the directory immediately above my home directory. All right, if you typed in _ls, you can see that the ls utility has a wide variety of options. And then Q to quit. Let me clear the screen. Okay, we talked about the cat command, and if I use the cat command, it will actually concatenate to the screen the contents of the file, or of a file. So the numbers file, which just has numbers in it, so if I type cat numbers, it will show me what's inside that file. Now, if the file is longer than a screen full, this is where cat can be a little rough, is it'll actually throw everything out on the screen at one time. So as we talked about some other ways to look at files, you could do more, and then more shows it a screen full at a time. And as you can see down here in the lower left, it shows me I'm 10% of the way through, 11%. If I use the space bar, I go full screen at a time. Looks like it's increasing 3 to 4% each time. Space bar again, or I'm sorry, the enter key is 1 line at a time. Space bar is a screen full at a time. And to quit, you simply hit the Q key. Okay, so that's more and cat. We looked at the hostname command, which will show you the host name of the system. We talked about the copy utility. So if I wanted to create a copy of the numbers file and call it numbers.09182013 and hit enter, I now have 2 versions of the same file with different names, but they have the same contents. And it might be because I'm going to go in and now I'm going to make some changes to the numbers file. So maybe I'm going to delete some of these lines that are in here. And then I'm going to save it. And now they're different. And maybe a week from now I realize those changes were not changes I wanted to make. The good news is I have a copy of the original right here. And I know exactly what date that it was modified on. We also talked about the grep utility. And the grep utility is very handy. So if I were to cat the password file on the system, and I wanted to see a listing of what's in the password file for the CSI135B users, that would be my command. And again, remember, using that pipe, we've now created a pipeline, right? So here's a list of what the password file entries are for the users in CSI135 section B. You'll notice here the second field is for the password, where the encrypted version of the password would be. And on the Vader system, that's not shown here. It's kept in a file called Etsy Shadow. But the password file is a great file to practice using grep with. And remember, grep stands for Global Regular Expression Print. All right. We also talked about some special characters. The first special character would be, and I'll put sleep 15 ampersand, is the ampersand character. And as you can see, the ampersand character puts the job into the background. I still have control of the terminal, but this process is running in the background. And when it finishes here in 15 seconds, it's going to notify me that the job is complete. And so it should be any second now, and there it is. So it shows me the job 1, and that was the job number. The 12075 is the process ID. And to show you that, if I do it again, you can see 12076. If I type in PS-EF and grep on 12076, you can see that that's the process ID that's been assigned to the sleep process, and that's going to finish here, and there it is, it's all done. So now if I were to run the PS-EF grep again, you can see that it does not match that process ID number. What it matched here, and this is process ID 12082, was it simply matched the grep process which I ran, and that was it. But the sleep process is stopped. All right. We also took a look at the date command. The date command by itself will show me the current system date and time. If you type in man date and come down a little bit to the format area here, you can actually run the date command with a number of options that begin with the % sign. And if you're doing any scripts of any kind, and we'll be doing this much later, you can actually use the date command to your advantage to literally timestamp when commands are running. As you can see, it's a very long list of commands that can be used with the date command, or options that can be used with the date command. Okay, so that's the date command. We also talked about the bzip2 and the gzip utility. So if I wanted to gzip the file numbers, right, you can see I only replaced 3.7%. So now when I type ls, you'll see that I have the numbers file. The name has changed, right? It was numbers, but now that file is compressed. So if I try to cat that out, I'm going to get a bunch of junk on my screen, right? Because it's compressed, so it's no longer readable text. So I would have to uncompress it, and I can do that with gzip-d for decompress, numbers.gz. And when I type in ls, you can now see that the file numbers is still there, or it's there again. So now when I cat numbers, I can actually see the output. So the gzip utility saved us 3.7%. Let's take a look and see what the bzip2 utility would have saved us with the numbers file as well. So it looks like, well, it doesn't look like it saved us 92%, but it's ls-lai, and we'll take a look at numbers.bz2, and it actually shrunk it down to, it looks like 52 bytes, so pretty small. So probably not the best example for the bzip utility, but again, they will compress files, gzip and bzip2. So a nice utility, bzcat, will actually take the file, right? Since it's compressed, bz2, it'll uncompress it or unbzip it, and then concatenate out to the screen the contents. And so it's a very quick way without having to uncompress it and then display the output. But you'll notice it still leaves it compressed. So even though we've done the bzcat utility, it kind of does it in the background and pushes the contents out to the screen for us to see here in human readable form, but it leaves the file compressed with the bzip2 utility. All right. We talked about the W utility as well as the Who utility, and those both show us information about users who are currently logged onto the system. Some other utilities we talked about were the where is utility. So where is uptime. So if I'm curious about where the uptime command is, you can see it's in user bin uptime, and we'll learn more about the file structure this evening. And then user share man1, where the man page files are at. So that's what the where is utility can help you with. It can help you locate things. You can also use the locate utility. So if I try to locate the executable uptime, right? And it basically shows me everywhere the word uptime is in the file system. It'll give me an output for each of those. If you type in which, that will also work, right? But which is actually searching your predetermined path. You have a path that's been set up, and we'll get into this around week 9 or 10 as to how you can customize your path. But which will search your path, whereas some of these other utilities will go further than looking at just the path that's been set up for you. All right, we also did a quick review of the VI editor, where you can simply start, or I should say Vim, the Vim editor, where you can simply type in VI space and a file name, and let's take a look at numbers. Whoops. I think numbers is still compressed. All right, so we'll do BZ, or yeah, we'll do, actually let's see what's in U. All right, so it's a new file. So you type I to get into insert mode, and it'll show you down here in the lower left-hand corner that you're now in insert mode. Oops, this is insert mode. Then you would hit escape to get to command mode, and then I could do Shift-ZZ ":WQ or :X to write the file, and as you can see here, it'll tell me it's been written, right, to disk. And that's critical because if the system were to reboot in the middle of the creation of the file, there's a possibility that the swap file might not be there. Okay, so that's our review for week number 3, and I look forward to seeing everybody tonight. Drive safely.